This video is brought to you by Grandeur Warranty, your #1 online source for factory-backed extended warranties in the country. Can this little baby truck survive the TFL toaster towing test?
It's good alliteration. This is going to be the most difficult towing test we've put this truck through so far. Let's see if it can make it.
We are using, on this gauge it says, the lower bar, the blue bar is electricity, and the gray bar is gasoline power, and they're combining right now. Both of them are being applied as I'm trying my hardest, as the vehicle is trying its hardest to maintain speed and climb. The pickup truck we're testing is our long-term 2025 Ford Maverick all-wheel drive hybrid. It's supposed to be tougher. It can tow up to 4,000 pounds. Let's see what it can do. All right, dude, I'm in tow haul mode. We're all ready to climb 8 miles of TFL toaster.
We're set up to go, and like you said, this is going to be a heavy towing test on a very hot day. It's 100 degrees outside, and we're at about 3,500 pounds of weight behind us.
Exactly, so we're pushing this Maverick very close to its 4,000 pound capacity. And like you said, we could show that 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Boulder at about a mile above sea level, and we have about 3,000 feet of climbing to do.
Some people might begin to ask, why do we push our Maverick so hard towing? Because we seem to do it a lot. It's been on the Ike,
yes.
Done MPG testing with it, and now we're doing what will be the hardest test yet.
Yeah, well, because it's a pickup truck, it has a bed, it has a hitch, it has a brake controller even here by my left knee. So it's a truck. As such, it needs to be working like one.
That's true, and if a truck is rated to tow a certain amount of weight, we want to see that that truck can tow that weight or around that maximum weight in any situation, on any road, at any time of year. This road that we're about to drive up, it goes up towards Sunshine Canyon, and it does get a lot of sunshine. That's why right now on the dash it's saying 102 degrees.
Oh my gosh, that's what it said last time when we were testing an F-150 here.
And you might be saying that, yeah, but nobody is pulling trailers up that hill. But that's not true, because there's houses up this hill, and there's construction projects up this hill, and there are off-road trails where people tow side-by-sides like the Honda Talon that's on a trailer behind us right now. What we're pulling today with our Ford Maverick is this dual-clutch Honda Talon that we've been testing out at our ranch. This is a really nice side-by-side, and it matches perfectly with our Aluma flat deck trailer to give us around 3,500 pounds to tow behind the Maverick, and that puts us pretty close to the maximum that truck can tow.
Safety is very important when you're doing any type of towing, especially in the mountains, and we are using our WaySafe height adjustable hitch. I had to use it in the upward position, so it's actually a rise, not a drop, and it has a built-in scale, so I know exactly the type of tongue load, which should be close to about 10% of the trailer load, and it is. I can verify it. We're all good to go. We're doing something that a lot of people who live here do.
Yeah.
As such, we want to see how it works. And any vehicle, any pickup truck can either pass or fail this test. A failure on this test means if we see some warning lights, overheating, temperatures, or if the truck pulls power, any of those things, if we see any of those, that means the truck is failing.
And as dramatic as that sounds, we're not playing it up for the camera, because several times on this test we've seen limp modes, warning messages, overheating. So this is an extremely difficult test that we actually discovered by accident, because we were using a pickup truck to pull 2 side-by-sides up to the top of this hill to shoot a video with the side-by-sides, and then all of a sudden the video became about the truck towing because we overheated. So yeah, this is definitely a valid test, and one that we like to do on hot days like today, because it's very telling as to how well equipped a truck is to be able to cool itself as you pull up the hill. Because cooling is one of the major criteria on which a truck's tow rating is based.
Yeah, and that's why engineers and every manufacturer who does vehicles for towing, they take it to Arizona in the summer, and they test it at Davis Dam there as well. And then they come to the iGauntlet, in the highway that we use also for testing, and they test it there also. So high elevation. I actually hooked up our Banks iDash data monster gauge because I wanted to learn more about this engine than we may know from the gauges that we have available from Ford. And I could see my RPM on this 2.5 liter sometimes spikes to about 4,000 or 4,500 RPM. And the coolant temp right now is at 194. So far so good.
Yeah, warm, but not over the top. It's not hot yet.
No.
And it definitely will be because we're starting our climb uphill. One of the things that makes this test difficult is this is a pretty slow road. Speed limit is 25 miles per hour on this portion of it, as it is for a lot of this drive. And because of that, you're just not getting that much airflow through any of the cooling system, radiators, or anything on the truck. So, because of that, the heat builds over time as you continue to pick up in elevation, you continue to lose power. Also on a hot day like today, and at our elevation, which is currently just over 6,000 feet, but will continue to climb quite a ways, our air density is really low. So
yeah.
Power is an issue.
And right now the gauge is telling me, the Banks gauge is telling me that our ambient air density calculation is about 70%. And that has to do not just elevation, but also the heat. Because it's hard to stuff those molecules in there. So potentially speaking, that 191 horsepower we used to have,
yeah,
we have about 70% of that now.
Yeah, and we're going to be using all of what we have available to us to get up this hill, as you might be able to hear. Motor's working pretty hard. This truck is set up with a CVT, but it's not the belt type CVT that some people might think. It's a planetary gear set. So it is a generally more durable construction for the CVT, which is good because even though in the realm of trucks 4,000 pounds isn't a ton, for a truck of this size, that's a pretty decent number.
Exactly.
Now the real hard work is going to fall on the shoulders of this 2.5 liter 4-cylinder and hybrid system that combines for 191 horsepower.
I'm a little worried because that number is not that big, 191 horsepower. It also doesn't have any turbochargers, but it does have electricity, which could help us.
At high elevation, it might have to.
Yeah, whenever you say CVT, a couple of things come to mind for maybe whoever's watching and listening. Is reliability is one,
yep.
And the second one is the droning. Well, we do have a little bit of droning.
Are you foot down now?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh dude, our RPM is at about 5,200 now.
Yeah, we're pushing hard to just try and maintain speed on this hill. It's definitely a bit of a task. Now, one thing that Ford does do, it's a little bit in the fine print, but it's worth noting, is whatever a truck is rated to tow at its maximum, Ford actually recommends that you drop that by a certain percentage depending on what elevation you're at.
Yeah, and it would be smart if you're pulling with any pickup truck for that matter, especially a Ford, to check the owner's manual, right? Make sure if there's something there that kind of talks about elevation and how that affects your combined weight rating. So that's really important. But if this truck and this transmission, this planetary gear set, which is supposed to be tougher, right? If they survive this test, then I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, absolutely, because this is a very difficult challenge. We've got one short downhill section here. Majority of this drive is pretty steep uphill, and we're going to continue to go uphill. However, to this Maverick's credit, when we've tested it in the past on the iGauntlet, it's done really well on the downhill because this is a hybrid. So it's able to recoup a little bit of electricity, but also use that portion of the powertrain to really effectively slow the truck and trailer down, even on some pretty steep grades like what we've got around the Eisenhower Tunnel on I-70.
And maybe it will help us here as well. Maybe not for the entire 8-mile stretch because there's only so much energy you could stuff into a small battery, right? Yeah. But at least on some of the scarier sections, I'm hoping it will help us.
The other thing that we like a lot is that this being the new updated version of the Maverick, it's available with the hybrid system and all-wheel drive, because when these Mavericks launched, the hybrid was front-wheel drive only, and us, but pretty much everybody, wanted to see that combination of all-wheel drive and hybrid. And now we've got it. That's how this truck is equipped. And that's a pretty nice thing to have, because of course we're in Colorado. We get all of the seasons and we get snow.
Yeah, especially on this canyon road.
Yeah.
When it's snowy and icy, it's really scary.
But not today. Today it is blazing hot.
Yes, basically I think it's a record tying day that we had last time. 102, and now it's 99 degrees.
Yeah, we'll lose a little bit of temp atmospherically as we start to go uphill, but the truck is not going to lose any temp. The truck is just going to continue to build. So far, our coolant temp showing 205. 205 is really not a bad number. Although one thing that I have to critique this truck for, which is unfortunate because it's something that the bigger Ford trucks do really well, is the amount of detail that you get in the instrument cluster for monitoring temperatures and every element of your vehicle, especially as far as the powertrain goes. On some of the bigger Ford trucks, you can get really detailed numbers for coolant temp, oil temp, transmission temp, which is all really nice.
And also some diesel specific elements if you have a diesel pickup truck, you know, like turbo boost and exhaust brake, all those gauges. Here I put it in tow haul mode and it's really not giving me any other additional information. So that's I have the same critique. You know, if you are actually in tow haul mode and the truck is sensing it's working really hard, I want to see more data.
And I get that this isn't an HD truck. It's not built for the same use case, but I've got to imagine that it wouldn't be that much of a challenge for them to communicate that information to you through the instrument cluster, or at least give you the option to do that. Not everybody needs that information. Not everybody wants that information in their face. Maybe they want a simpler gauge layout, but I have to imagine that the truck has all the wideband sensors that it needs to be able to monitor those exact numbers. So why not just do the software to communicate that to the driver if they so choose? That's what they did on the bigger trucks. I'd like to see that on this as well, because it is still a pickup truck. People use these Mavericks to do work a lot. This is not just a lifestyle vehicle. We see them locally quite a bit, owned by companies that are doing landscaping, all kinds of different businesses. We see them pulling trailers. We see them loaded up with ladders and all kinds of stuff in the bed. So it's a valid use case for this vehicle.
If you're planning to own your pickup truck, a CVO car beyond 3 years or maybe beyond 5 years, you should consider GrangerWarranty.com. It's a factory-backed extended warranty. You could save around $1,000 by using a link in the description below, and you can be sure that certified technicians are working on your vehicle with OEM quality parts, so you're covered for the long haul. By the way, the Banks gauge, the way it's set up from kind of out of the box, for the Maverick itself, it also doesn't have transmission temp. So I tried, but really the Banks gauge is really for bigger trucks, right?
Yeah, so maybe it is lacking in some sensors.
I'm sure that data is there.
Yeah.
That data is inside this truck.
You would have to imagine. Certainly it has some kind of measurement on transmission temp. I don't know if it's a sophisticated enough sensor to be able to say exactly what the number is, but you would think it would be. It'd be interesting to talk to an engineer and find out on the back end if they're able to access more of that information than what we can get with either our Banks gauge or the built-in instruments in front of you and in front of the steering wheel.
All right, we swapped. Now we went, 5.5 miles, and the extra 3 miles are in dirt. So now we'll see a little bit of hopping and washboard road, which makes it even more challenging.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, dude, we've said this again before in the videos with the Maverick. It's very stable, very comfortable to drive with a trailer.
It is. It's stable, and like we said, it slows down the weight behind it really well. The main area where it struggles at times is with power, especially once again because we're up here in the mountains. We've got thinner atmosphere and we've got really steep grades. So we've definitely been in situations like we were a little bit ago, where your foot to the floor,
Yeah.
and it's given all it's got to give, but what it's got to give ain't that much.
Exactly. But thankfully, an electric motor doesn't care about the elevation or altitude. So maybe that's compensating a tiny bit for what we're doing.
That's true. It might not lose quite as much power as a fully naturally aspirated powertrain alone would, but 191 horsepower is not a ton. When you're pulling 4,000 pounds below you, it exacerbates that. So at times the power feels a little inadequate, but otherwise it's really not bad. And on flatter roads, when we're pulling even as much as 4,000 pounds, the truck feels surprisingly happy.
Exactly. And we are using, on this gauge it says, the lower bar, the blue bar is electricity, and the gray bar is gasoline power. And they're combining right now. Both of them are being applied as I'm trying my hardest, as the vehicle is trying its hardest to maintain speed and climb.
Yeah, and this is an especially challenging part of this test. As we get onto dirt, we've got these switchbacks. They're also pretty steep. But once again, the temperatures that we are able to monitor aren't too bad. We're climbing a little bit beyond where we were before. So right now it's saying 210, 212,
Yes.
214.
It is climbing.
So it's definitely climbing, but not dramatically. 216. We're still well within a range of what I would call normal for coolant temp.
Exactly. And unfortunately, we don't have oil temp for the engine. We don't have transmission temp once again.
Yeah, 219. It is climbing steadily now that we're on the switchbacks over dirt here.
Yeah, this is the hardest part, and it's the steepest part, and the highest elevation part.
Absolutely. So we'll see. I'd be happy if it levels out around 220. I don't really.
You don't want to see it too far above that?
Yeah, generally over 230, 240 is, it starts to get worrying. 221 is warm on the coolant side of things, so yeah, it's showing 221, back down to 219 now. Yeah, so we're monitoring it, keeping an eye on it. All is well at the moment. We're not going to have a meltdown. 217. It's saying so.
It's controlling it.
Exactly. We're kind of maintaining in that realm between about 215 and 220.
And by the way, like if we were in another truck, maybe even a diesel pickup truck, sometimes you hear that fan come on. Not just the engine sound, but also the fan, and the cooling fan for the radiator. Here, I'm not noticing that. Because it's mostly the transmission or the high RPM of the engine.
True. We hear a lot of the drone. The fan on this, by comparison to a big HD truck, is probably much quieter.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's running.
But we're not hearing
with
it.
us being around 220, but it's not making any noise that we can hear from inside.
Dude, it's 94 degrees this high up. And what's the elevation right now? Can you double check?
Right now, 7,800 feet. We are getting close to the top.
Yeah.
We're not there yet, but as you can tell, we've climbed quite a bit. Boulder is right around 5,200 feet, and we're at 7,800, closing in on 8,000 feet. So this is a steep road, steep switchbacks, a lot of continuous sustained uphill. And we do have the AC going because it's a 100-degree day. The purpose of what we're trying to do here is give a good representation of what a regular driver would do if they were pulling the maximum on this road. So we're not trying to make it easier on the truck. We're running the AC.
Yeah.
Because also, if we weren't running the AC,
we would be sweating.
Yeah, and it wouldn't look good. You'd be able to smell us through the camera.
We don't want that.
We don't want that.
No.
Especially because we're actually in here in real life.
Yes. And we set it at 71, 70 degrees is our AC.
Yeah. We're not blasting the AC, but
because we also want to talk to you.
Yeah, we want you to be able to hear us over a blower motor, but we've got it going enough to keep us at a comfortable temperature, and it doesn't seem to be putting the truck at an uncomfortable temperature. So I'm pretty impressed. So here we are, Andre. We're at the top.
We did it.
We made it. No warning messages, not even concerning temperature on our coolant temp. I'd love to be able to see what the engine oil temp is,
or
what
the transmission
fluid temp is, because I'm sure those numbers are higher than what we're seeing for coolant temp, but not high enough to send any warning to the gauge cluster to tell us to slow down or that the vehicle is going into limp mode. So as far as I'm concerned, flying colors.
It is very impressive, dude. And also the coolant gauge here almost never moved. So I'm glad we had the digital display, because otherwise it would be difficult to tell where it was.
Yeah, because I would say that our coolant temp is warmer than the gauge in the cluster is letting on.
It's really in the center there.
Yeah, the gauge in the cluster is saying, oh, you're not warm at all. But we're definitely on the warmer side. Again, nothing concerning, but it's toasty.
It's a pass. Yes, I can hear the fan finally when we're stopped. I can hear it.
Yeah, it sounds noisy.
You know, I'm a little bit upset at how well this Maverick did.
Yeah, not a lot of drama, honestly.
No.
It pretty much did it and didn't miss a beat.
Yeah, so, you know, when we go off-roading on our TFL off-road channel, and when the vehicle is really, really great, it looks boring.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this did today.
Well, at least off-roading is one thing that the Maverick is not good at, so it's not perfect at everything. Look, the truck did actually really well. We've been impressed with it in the past when we've hooked it up to a trailer. Today's no different. Yeah, flying colors, that's all you can say.
Yeah, and then if you want to learn more about this truck or any other vehicles we test, check out oldtfl.com. You can find out about how much we paid, which was about $36,000 for this particular Maverick.
Yeah, which is pricier than they used to be, but...
Yeah. And you can learn about, you know, you have a motorcycle channel, TFL Bike. Yeah. We have podcasts, 3 of them. So we got a lot going on too.
Exactly. So check out alltfl.com. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next time.